Okay. Okay, I just realized something here that the stupid StreamYard muted my mic on me. So everything I just said about what was going on messed up. Hopefully you were able to read the ground rules and everything else at the beginning. So let me try this again really quick here. Walt Rogers is the main character. He's been living on his uncle's ranch since he's 12. His dad and the rest of his family lives in Seattle. He is now 20 years old. He graduated from high school up there in Adams County, Idaho. He's been working as a foreman on his uncle's multi-thousand acre ranch, cattle ranch, and they have some horses. And he's I'm not. I don't want to go through everything. Basically, you can go back to the first book and catch up on it. But basically, Walt has become sheriff. After the sheriff retired, nominated him. Walt's girlfriend through most of this is 2.5 years younger. When the book starts out, she's a senior in high school at 17 and a half. They don't do it. Not until after she's 18 does she tell him, "Hey, I've had a crush on you since I was a freshman." And she goes, and they realize, oh, he's running for sheriff. They can't do anything because she's still in high school. After he's elected sheriff, they start seeing each other. Then he finds out about this asteroid coming, and they have been keeping a relationship kind of secret. Walt has gotten the ranch prepared for all his family members to come out there, and so basically, most of his family are living on the ranch now in modulars he's set up for them. They've had his dad, who's a lawyer, form an LLC to bring in doctors, dentists, scientists, and stuff on one part of the ranch to help out. His mother is a professor at the University of Oregon in Seattle, and she and some of the others ones in the horticulture department are there working on stuff. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on. Another group, which was down in LA, the Donaldsons. Mrs. Donaldson's grandparents live in Indian Valley, just south of Council, Idaho, still inside of Adams County. They're up there, and he was an oil executive, senior vice president for a big oil company. He is having lived in LA. He had bodyguards to protect his kids and his family. Three of them came up with them, and the rest of it you can figure out as we go along, or go back and just start watching the prologue through the prologue to chapter 2. All right, so let's get at this. Let's switch it back to this, and let's get at it. We're going to go down here to chapter 9. That's what we're there we go, chapter 9. That's what we're starting out with today, and let's get at it here. Walt was riding the high trails of the ranch, enjoying the crisp spring morning air when his horse started trotting down the rocky trail, bouncing him hard in the saddle. Suddenly, the horse started bucking, and Walt was having a very hard time staying in the saddle. Then he heard a bunch of car horns blaring. His mind was having difficulty justifying car horns way up here in the mountains. Then a loud boom woke him up from the dream and brought him back to reality. Walt had gone to sleep in his department Humvee, and it was about 10:30. No, sorry, I getting ahead of myself. Walt had gone to sleep in his department Humvee about 10:30, knowing that he would be wakened by the earthquakes that had been increasing in strength in the early morning. He'd parked the Humvee in the high school parking lot where it would be safe from anything falling on it short of an asteroid or airplane. That did not stop the Humvee from bouncing like a basketball, though. The current shockwave passed, and Walt sat up in the passenger seat and brought the seat back up to an upright position. It wasn't as comfortable as sleeping in the Ranger 2 with its fold-down seats, but it's definitely more comfortable than trying to sleep in his office. He swore the wooden bench was a medieval torture device his predecessor, Randolph Cooper, had gotten to keep deputies and prisoners awake. Walt looked at his watch, 3:30. At least in the Humvee, he'd gotten some sleep. It was as much as he hoped for, was better than nothing. He opened the passenger door and extracted his stiff body from the seat and began a series of stretching exercises to work the kinks out of his sore muscles. When he finished the exercises, he walked around to the other side of the Humvee and opened the driver's door and picked up his Stetson off the seat, then combed his hair back with his left hand and placed it on his head. Walt noticed that the orange glow in the western sky was brighter than it had been the last 4 mornings. So far, the ashfall had been steady yet light, and not nearly as heavy as they thought it would be. It seemed that even though the Cascadia subduction zone was rupturing during the time that the ocean water was pulled away by the gravitational field of the asteroid, a great amount of ash was released. Most of it passed over western Idaho and was dropping into the state of Montana. A bit of luck had been on his side when the water returns. They came to a higher height, thus farther inland during the normal tides, and thus covered the majority of the rupture. When the water covered the lava, great amounts of superheated steam was created. The steam rose up with the ash and mixed with it and condensed it. Then the water-heavy ash fell back to the earth within 200 miles of the fault. However, when the gravitational field of the asteroid pulled the water away again, the lava flow was uncovered and the ash rose dry into the higher altitude and traveled further inland once again. Now the flow from the Cascadia subduction zone rupture was greater than before, so Walt presumed because of the increased brightness Walt presumed because of the increase of the western sky. All right, we got some more people in here. Welcome. What this would do to the ashfall pattern, he had no idea. The ground started to shake, and Walt looked at his watch again. 3:35. The shaking got worse so quickly that Walt didn't have a chance to properly brace himself. And in trying to stay upright, he bounced off the side of the Hummer and landed on his backside. He grunted as he tried to remain sitting up during the shaking, but soon gave up and rolled over on his side, holding his head up out of the ash ash-covered gravel of the parking lot. Finally, the shaking stopped. Walt quickly checked his watch. 48 seconds, he said to himself, and rolled off his side and staggered to his feet. Look, I got to capitalize the word there. There we go. Even the short ones are getting bad. Another one I forgot to capitalize. He continued as he stood upright and dusted the ash off of himself. Walt's phone pinged and vibrated, indicating he had an incoming text message. He reached inside his duster, past the sheepskin vest to his shirt pocket where the phone continued to vibrate, and fumbled with the pocket flap to get it out. He opened the flip case and tapped the touchscreen to acknowledge the text and opened it so he could read it. He saw he had three unread texts, all from his dad, over the last 2 hours. They all said the same thing. Call me. Dang, I must have been out not to hear the cell phone, Walt said to himself with a chuckle. Walt walked around to the passenger side, took the bucket covering the air intake off, and put it on the floor of the passenger side seat. He went back to the driver's side, climbed into the driver's seat, and started the Humvee up. Next, he dropped his hat into the passenger seat, adjusted the heater, and then called his dad. The phone only rang once when his father's voice came loudly through the speaker. Walt, where have you been? We've been trying to get hold of you for 2 hours. I lay down to take a nap and crashed hard. I was so wiped out, it took a good earthquake to wake me up. Mark's voice came back a little less hard. Well, I guess you've been working rather hard and long hours, son, but the shit has hit the fan hard. It was very unlike Mark to use the phrase in plain English. Usually he would say something like the defecation has made hard contact with the rotary oscillator, or use some other form a lawyer would speak to get the point across. This means hang on, let me put a word. Something, T-H-I-N-G. Something very bad. And Walt knew it. What happened? He said, the asteroid slowed down as it passed the moon. It slowed a lot. What do you mean it slowed down? It was supposed to keep accelerating because the Earth's gravitational pull and slingshot in towards Mercury and then slingshot around the sun and back out of the solar system. Somehow the gravitational pull of the moon had more effect on its speed than they thought it would, and slowed it to a deceleration point rather than just slowing its acceleration into the slingshot. Anyways, its slowing is caused a lot more than just throwing its path off. Hang on, that's supposed to be that word. Okay, correct that one. Okay, because it's going to take a little longer to pass the Earth. The gravitational pull is moving a lot more water and lava around the world. What's happening? Walt asked a little more concerned. Walt asked a little more in control of his panic and added, just the bullet points, please. The Earth looks like an egg pointed at the asteroid as it passes. Tidal levels are 800 to 900 feet higher than last night's updated predictions in the Middle East. If it wasn't floated by the tides, the existing and new volcanoes are burning and burying it. There are lava flows that haven't been seen since the dinosaurs, and it's spreading our way. Mark paused to take a breath and let Walt assimilate the information before he continued. The tides that will hit the East Coast in the next, the tides that will hit the East Coast in the next 30 minutes are going to be higher by 600 to 700 feet. Wait a second, Walt interrupted. Aren't those tides supposed to hit the East Coast? Those tides aren't supposed to hit the East Coast for 2 more hours at least. They're early because when the asteroid slowed, it was able to pull the water faster and more of it higher. Therefore, volcanic activity will be greater. Damn, Walt let out with a heavy sigh as he turned his eyes towards the orange sky. That's not all of it. For some reason, the magma flow is coming faster than the water. The volcano that appeared in the middle of the Mississippi River near New Madrid has started erupting like Mount St. Helens. The whole area blew out when the magma hit the billions of gallons of water that were flowing into the crater when it dropped 12 hours ago. How bad is it? They're saying debris landed over 140 miles away. But that's not the worst of it. Around 2:45 hours, the 8 volcanoes in and around Mexico City all erupted at the same time. What? Let me read it to you. Let me read it off to you. I can't pronounce these volcano names down there. You'll just have to read them there. They all erupted within 10 minutes of each other. Here's what you need to hear. New Madrid is at latitude 89.5279 west. Mexico City is at 102.8528. Yellowstone is at 102.585. And we are at 16.1482. Crap, Walt yelled. Yellowstone should be ready to blow any second. It should have blown 30 minutes ago. Walt put the Humvee in gear and punched the accelerator as he cranked the wheel towards the street. Have you warned everybody at the ranch and Redoubt Village? Yes, everyone we've been in contact with, the Smythes, Red Hawks families, the Ventures, and of course Sarah's family. David and Sally have been calling or texting or radioing everyone. Mrs. Davies says her husband can't make contact with the secretary. You know what that means? Yeah, it means the government communication network is collapsing due to all the damage. You could lose the DHS satellite connections really soon, so get what you can while you can. That may or may not stay up, but I got a feeling it's going to shut down real soon. I'm heading to the office to put out an emergency radio warning message. Then Sarah's, then back out to the ranch. There's not much else I can do here in town. Okay, but try not to take too long. I don't want you to get caught out in the open when Yellowstone blows or something else bad happens. I'm going as fastly as I can safely. If Yellowstone does blow, the safe room may not be the best place to be. I think everyone should be inside the tunnel. It's stronger. Got it. I'll have them start moving beds and supplies now. See you soon. Take care, son. Walt was coming out of the sheriff's office after setting up and activating the emergency radio warning message with the information he had about the 5 minute that he had. It was about a 5. Sorry, something's missing here. had. There we go. Period. Going to make this a capital I. Yeah, split the sentence. Yeah. It was about a 5-minute message that was on continuous loop and run for 4 hours unless something happened to the building, the tower, the power, or somebody shut it off early. He was almost to the Humvee when he heard the sound of a big motorcycle heading his way from the business district. Not many people were out driving with the ash on the roads unless they had some sort of extra filter on the vehicle. So far, there was only one person he'd seen with an ash filter set up on the motorcycle, and that was the ex-Marine / bodyguard from down in Indian Valley at the Butterfield place. This one sounded like her ride. Okay, what's going on here? Great, yeah. Okay. The motorcycle started slowing down half a block away and coasted up to the Humvee. The rider was dressed in winter camo and had a duffel bag strapped to the back of the motorcycle. Even with the baggy winter camo, Walt could tell that it was a woman driving a motorcycle. She turned off the motorcycle and undid the chin strap of her helmet and pulled it off. Sheriff Rogers, I heard your broadcast and headed over here, hoping to catch you before you disappeared off patrolling the county, Kathy said with a little trepidation in his voice. Well, Gunny, I'm surprised to see you in town at this time of the morning. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. She paused and pursed her lips and drew in a long breath to the nose. First of all, the Butterfields would like to express their gratitude for the deal with the cattle. Not a big deal, just preservation on my part. Yeah, right. Kathy responded, knowing she knew it was more than that. Anyway, you should know what we found out listening to the ham radio. Southern California, Walt interjected before she could continue. You know. My brother David is monitoring most frequencies and has several recording with a timestamp recorder. It's going to be a lot worse in California in the next couple hours. They should have a massive steam eruption like what's happening in New Madrid a couple hours ago. New Madrid? Kathy asked with a puzzled look on her face. Walt realized she knew nothing about the volcano in the Mississippi River. No, it was the day before, a small volcano started to form in the middle of the Mississippi River. Yesterday afternoon, it collapsed into its huge sinkhole when the magma shifted to the other side of the world. Following the pull of the asteroid, she half asked, half stated, correct. The river dumped all of its water into the sinkhole. Shit. Kathy shook her head and glanced down. When the magma hit and returned it, flash boiled into steam and exploded like a super volcano. It threw debris out at least 140 miles. So of all the mountains that dropped in Southern California and the seawater made it into the super sinkhole. Oops, I got to change something there. I missed it before. Space 1, 2, 3. There we go. And capital S. There we go. She let the thought hang in the air. Exactly, Walt said. What about the Cascadia subduction zones? She asked, looking to the orange glow in the sky. Well, since we see the orange glow from the magma flows, I don't think any water has flown into it that hasn't already boiled off. At least we were lucky there. Well, was there anything else you need to talk to me about? Yes, sir. Why does that have that on there? She sat upright. Walt realized this was something important. and that her thanking him for the cattle and talking about Southern California was breaking the ice and making ice. Kathy continued, with everything that's happening in Southern California, we believe that the Long Valley volcano area is going to erupt with a mega volcano, if not a super volcano. And what you added to the mix of what happened at New Madrid kind of proves that our supposition is we are going to lose the southern food belt and the industrial base of the country. Kathy held up a finger as she took a breath to steady herself before continuing what she wanted to say. Since yesterday evening, we've been downloading everything on crop chemistry to simple machine manufacturing to making cloth and cloth manufacturing and clothing manufacturing and anything else our grandchildren are going to need not just to survive but to rebuild. When she stopped, unsure how to say what she did or what was on her mind, Walt said, "What'd you do about it?" "I've been scavenging through businesses that have either been broken into or were damaged in such a way I could just walk in. I've been gathering laptops, batteries, external drives, printers, ink, paper, binders, everything we need to publish books on how to make stuff again." She held her palm out to stop Walt from saying anything. "We know the internet is going down for good, but we don't have much time left to gather information. Everybody at the Butterfields have been out what they could find. This trip, I just been after paper and ink. This is my fourth trip to town." She straightened up. "I can't let my family down. They have to survive. I just wanted you to know that we will pay for what we took, maybe not in money, but in goods and information when the asteroid passes and we start to recover." Walt did something that Kathy did not expect. He smiled broadly. "Well, you are trying to save information to rebuild. I guess you need some authority to do it. Raise your right hand and repeat after me." After giving her the oath of office for a deputy, Walt opened the box he was carrying from his office when he started the emergency radio message. Inside were 20 some odd deputy badges. He took one out and tossed it to Kathy. "Here you go, deputy. I have to go. I'll have my brother David set up a sideband frequency for you to use to update me when you get back to the Butterfields. In the meantime, use this frequency to get with him." Walt quickly wrote the frequency on a page in his notebook and tore it out and gave it to Kathy. Kathy shook her head in disbelief. "I thought you were going to arrest me for what I was doing." "What? Trying to save lives and knowledge? Heck, that's going to be our main job from here on out." Then a smile dropped on his face. "That and killing the scumbags that survive and come to the surface to try to impose their wills on others." "Well, put a comma in there. I'd already planned on doing some of that and come springtime. We may have to do it a lot sooner than that. Maybe before the start of the new year," Walt sighed. "Some of the gangs from the cities will realize that the food is in the country and come right away. Others will come late summer when their food runs out. But you need to get home right away." All Kathy did was nod as she put her helmet back on. She started her Harley, threw Walt a salute, and drove off to help save her new family. Walt hopped in his Humvee and headed to Sarah's house. Do I got a big gap in there? Hang on, I gotta check gappings here. No, okay. It just looks weird. Jerry Gray and Randy Cassidy were inspecting the. Hang on, I need to change this around. and fix this. Because elsewhere it is referred to as the mine. There we go. Oh, wrong one. Not tunnels. I want this one here. There we go. Tunnels of the mine after the last couple earthquakes hit. It was still very early in the morning, and they were trying to be as quiet as they could, as not to wake anyone who was still awake or trying to get back to sleep. They were looking for any new cracks or older ones that were widening. So far, they hadn't found any. They had been inspecting the inhabited areas where people were living and sleeping. Now they were moving into the storage areas where the water tanks, bulk food, medical supplies, and other temperature-sensitive supplies were kept. Jerry had noticed recently that whenever she volunteered or was asked to do a detail that required two or more people, Randy was the first one to volunteer to go too. Aha, I made a mistake here. At first, she didn't think anything of it until Amy said that Randy had asked her Randy had asked her what Jerry's favorite foods were, and then her favorite color, what desserts she likes. Granted, Amy, hang on, was I supposed to copy this? No. Granted, Amy said, I'm going to take that word out. Amy said he'd been really coy about it, also asking others about the same thing. But Amy had caught him writing down what he'd heard in a pocket notebook, and when she confronted him, he fessed up and begged her not to write him out. Amy said that she would think about it. Amy started to leave when she turned in and asked Randy why he hadn't asked Jerry out. Randy said he couldn't because it would get Jerry in trouble for dating a minor. That he couldn't ask her out until he was 18, and he insisted that she not tell anyone because it would ruin Jerry's perfect reputation. Amy almost told him that Jerry didn't have a perfect reputation when she saw the looks in his eyes and saw pure fear there. But not for him, but for Jerry. That's when Amy knew that Randy was hopelessly in love with Jerry. For the next couple of days, Amy watched Randy try to be the perfect gentleman for Jerry. If he did something that she didn't like, he never did anything close to it again. That's when she decided to tell Jerry. But first, she made Jerry swear not to hold what she was going to tell her against the person she was going to tell her about. At first, Jerry didn't want to swear until Amy said it was cute and adorable. Finally, Jerry swore, and Amy told her. Jerry didn't want to believe her friend and said she was reading too much in it. Then Amy told all about confronting Randy and what Randy said and did. Jerry was in shock. This fellow that she had thought as just a non-annoying little brother was trying to win her heart slowly and on the sly. It was cute, as Amy said, but Jerry had to figure out a way to find out without letting Randy know that Amy had told her herself for herself. So she came up with a plan to figure out just how serious Randy was about her and what he and would not do to get her. The day before, she had put her spare sleeping bag back behind one of the water tanks in the storage room so that no one went into the storage tank that no one went into except to do crack inspection, as they called the inspection detail. The storage tanks were the storage rooms are just side tunnels off the main mine tunnel. Now, by the time they entered the room, Jerry had hidden the sleeping bag. They had checked several other rooms and were talking freely about the asteroid and future. What do you think that it's really going to get as bad as it does in the books the sheriff wrote? Jerry asked Randy as they entered the door. I hope not, but I got a bad feeling life is going to be a lot harder than what he has let Sarah know about. The earthquakes still are. Randy spoke as he broke to the right side of the tank like he normally did. Jerry went to the other side where she had hidden the sleeping bag and hurried down to it. I think the sheriff knows that it's going to be worse, and that's the reason he let us set up our little group here. For what purpose? I'm not sure. Sarah said that there are little groups all over the county. Maybe he wants to make sure that those he trusts makes it through the dying winter, I guess. Jerry quoted the title of one of the sheriff's books as she spread out the sleeping bag. That sounds logical. Hey, Randy, come over here and check out this crack, Jerry called to him. There shouldn't be a crack on the wall, according to the log, Randy said as he ran back around the tank and came behind Jerry. As you ran around Kent behind Jerry, where is it? Hang on here. We got that going. Right here in front of me. He tries to squeeze by her. Jerry quickly turns towards him, and Jerry turned towards him and quickly raised her arms up, putting her hands on the wall, one in front of Randy and one behind him. Then she leaned in so that their lips were just inches apart. Randy, let's be honest with each other, okay? I mean, totally honest. She rasped out as she rubbed her body against his. Okay, let me fix this. No, I need to go back to that. Okay, he stammered out. Oh, got to change that. I've been watching how you always volunteer for details I'm on, and I've heard you asking others what I like. Do you love me or do you just like me? She said, sliding her nose along his until the tips were touching each other's face. Their foreheads touched and their lips were a finger's width away from each other, and her warm breath washed over his face. Randy was fast becoming overwhelmed with joyous emotions that she wanted him, but he still had some sense of self-control. 1, 2, 3. Yes, I love you, and she pressed his lip. Her lips pressed gently against his in a quick kiss. And I want to know, and I want to do what I think you're planning. 1, 2, 3. She kissed him again, but a little longer and harder. But I don't want you to go to jail for having sex with a minor. He was able to get out before. She kissed him again. I won't tell if you don't tell, she said with a throaty passion, and kissed him again. I would never do anything to get you in trouble, so we can't do this now, not until we're married. He grabbed her hips and held them tight so she wasn't grinding them against him, grinding them into him anymore. What? She said as she pulled her face away from him. You don't want to have sex with me? Oh, I want to have sex with you. Boy, do I want to have sex with you. For days on end, I want to have sex with you. But I want to do it when we're married. So why can't we do it now and just get married later? She pouted. I brought a sleeping bag here for us. She looked down to her right where the sleeping bag lay. Randy looked at it for a second or two, then back at Jerry. Because I love you and respect you. You're not a cheap tramp, and I won't treat you like one. But what if I want you to treat me like a tramp? She leaned back in and licked his lips. Jerry, if you really want me to treat you like a tramp, then I will, but only after we're married. Jerry released him and smiled. Oh my goodness, you really are in love with me. Of course I'm in love with you. But you just prove it by not having sex with me. She pulled him to her and kissed him long and deeply, then broke the embrace and grabbed his hand and led him out of the room towards the living area. She led him through the various family groups to her family. Kneeling down by her parents, she woke them. She gently woke them. Mom, Dad, Randy and I want to get married. Need to get married. Her mom gasped. Oh, no. No, Mom. I'm not that. We haven't yet. We haven't yet. That's why we need to, so we can. What her dad finally said, you haven't yet, but you want to, so you hang on. Gotta fix these things here. But you want to, so you have to get married. Are you thinking clear? Every boy I dated tried to get me to have sex with them. Randy won't until we're married. I know. I just did my best to try to seduce him, and he refused to have sex with me until we're married. How many men would do that? Not enough, her dad said, now fully awake. Exactly. He really loves me. And I don't awake any longer now that I found a man that really cares that much about me, Jerry declared. Her dad nodded that he understood and looked at Jerry. You said no to her? It was hard, but yes. I will not get her into any type of trouble, physically or legally. How old are you, Randy? Her mom asked him. I turned 18 on Christmas. Randy answered with an apprehensive tone in his voice. Yeah, I hear a lot of teens are getting married young these days, her dad said with a sigh. Just how long have you been pining away after my daughter, Randy? He expected the answer to be weeks or a couple months. 4 years, 6 weeks, he said shyly. 4 years, Jerry and her parents said loudly. That's why I joined the venture crew when I turned 14, so I could be around you. 4 years, 6 weeks, 2 years, 6 weeks. Hang on here. Jerry stopped talking as her eyes lit up. That was your first day at high school. Yeah. I saw you and your red hair getting out of your red truck, and it blew me away. Randy smiled sheepishly. I know that any girl with red hair that drove a big red truck had to have her feet planted right and head on straight. And I was right. So you two really want to get married? Yes, we do, Reverend Gray. Yes, Dad, Jerry said at the same time. Well, then, we'll take care of it right after breakfast, if you two can wait that long. Jerry looked down at the floor and blushed. Jerry reached over and took Jerry's hand and brought it to his lips and said, I've waited 4 years. I can wait a few more hours. Good. Now we can get back to sleep while you two finish your chores, Reverend Gray said as he flopped back down his pillow and pulled a blanket over his head. Jerry threw herself on top of her father and he tried to get comfortable and hug him. You're the best father ever. Kathy turned the Harley off the road onto the gravel road that led to off the paved road. Pave off the paved road onto the gravel road that led to the Butterfields Ranch. The motorcycle responded a little sluggish with the weight of all the supplies she had acquired on this last run. It wasn't enough to cause her to slip or lose control or anything like that. Just made her a little more nervous on the gravel. A few minutes later, she pulled up to the house and seeing there were lights still on in the house, she honked the horn. She was unstrapping the boxes of her haul when Lonnie and Joseph came out of the house with smiles on their faces. You did good, Gunny, Joseph said as he looked over the boxes on her Harley. Well, Major, I did get lucky at a couple stores, she said with a little of a hesitant demeanor. Joseph and Lonnie shot her quick glances at each other, but didn't say anything. Kathy caught their exchange out the corner of her eye and said, a couple of guys were breaking into one of the stores, and I was checking out when an earthquake hit. The brick facade fell on them, killing all of them. She took a breath and sighed. Afterwards, I ran into the sheriff. What happened, Gunny? Hang on, got to capitalize that. Another reason I'm proofreading. But somebody came in and hopped right back out again. I told the sheriff I told the sheriff, hang on. And what I was doing and what I was doing and why. I was a little unsure until the sheriff tossed me a deputy's badge and swore me in. What? Lonnie and Joseph and Lonnie said at the same time. Hang on here. Check something over here. I forgot to change this thing up here. And Lee Argent was in here for a little bit. I think I'm sure he's still here. See if he's still there. Okay. And all right, get back to it. Now, I know I put it up big enough for you guys to see it, but I'm still going to read off the other page over here. Yeah, he named the deputy and said that protecting lives and knowledge was what our job was going to be for a while. And let's get in here and fix this one. Until the bad guys get here from the city, then we'd be at war. Well, he didn't exactly use those terms, but that's what he meant. Lonnie grabbed two of the boxes. Let's get this stuff inside and tell us the rest over a cup of hot chocolate. Just like my grandpa, Kathy muttered. And don't you forget it, he cackled back. Inside the house, Kathy saw that just about everyone was up working on the laptop she brought back on earlier trips. There were extension cords strung all around to provide power to the laptops, the printers, the external hard drives, and the printers connected to them. We figured we might as well start printing stuff off now while we got power, in case we get a power surge spike. The surge protector can't handle it, fries the equipment, Joseph said. I just wish I'd gotten the faster internet service, Lonnie groused. This is so slow with all these computers trying to access it. Once they had unloaded everything off the motorcycle and taken it in the house, Kathy excused herself to go to go park the Harley in the barn. Change that to her Harley. There we go. In the barn, she wiped down the Harley to get all the ash off of it. Then she emptied the dust bowl on the intake filter system she had built to keep the ash out of the engine. She wiped it down and reinstalled it. Then she removed the tractor air filter and wiped down the inside of the housing. Once it was clean, she took the filter and tapped it against the inside of trash can she had brought into the barn just for this purpose. As she tapped the filter, clouds of ash fell from the grooves in the filter. When she couldn't get more out by tapping it, she picked up a 1-inch paintbrush and gently dusted the filter as if it were a dinosaur fossil. When she felt that the filter was the cleanest she could get it with a brush, she took it outside where she had an air hose with a tube nozzle on it. The tube was bent at the end so it could blow the air out through the filter. This removed any particles that were still embedded in the filter paper. Once there was clean air blowing from the filter, Kathy hung the hose back up and went inside and took the filter over to the Harley and reinstalled it. Then she wiped down the filter housing and bikey in and put the tools away. She then cleaned herself up and went back into the house. As she walked, she took notice of the orange sky in the west. It was brighter. It was brighter yet again. I'm going to change this around. EVEN, even more so than EARLI than earlier, indicating that more lava was flowing from the ruptured fault of the Cascadia subduction zone. Then she, for some reason, she turned to look for the sunrise, even though it would not be rising for a couple more hours. Kathy stared at the eastern sky for a while when she noticed the normal night time sounds were not there. She looked around for the something out of normal. All right, hang on. I gotta talk to the little monkey here. What's up?
Miss.
You're hungry?
Yeah.
What do you want?
Maybe a cereal.
Some cereal?
Yeah.
All right. I'll be in there in a couple minutes, okay?
Okay.
Go back to watching TV. Okay. Well, the little monkey wants some cereal. So I'm going to finish up this little section here, and then I'm going to take a quick run in there and give him some cereal. The nighttime sounds were not there. She looked around for something out of the normal, but she did not see anything. Then she was drawn back to looking east, as if drawn by something primordial instinct warning her. She shook her head, told her that she was just being silly. Then she saw light over the far over the horizon glow brighter and brighter by the second. Soon it was brighter than the glow from the Cascadia subduction zone. Suddenly she was overtaken by a terrible dread she had like none she ever felt before. Turning quickly, she ran as fast as she could into the house and started screaming at the top of her lungs, "Put your earplugs in! Put your earplugs in!" Walt was leaving Sarah's house when his phone rang. He stopped walking in the decontamination hallway and pulled the phone out. It was his dad calling. "What's up?" "Who's Kathy Dyer?" "She's one of my new deputies. She lives at the Butterfields in Indian Valley. She just radioed said she saw Yellowstone erupt." "What?" Walt shouted as he ran for the entrance to the hallway. He shoved the plastic sheet aside and went outside and looked east. There was a brighter light than it was showing in the west. Yellowstone had indeed finally erupted. Walt was trying to comprehend the impact of the situation when a question forced its way to the front of his mind. Did she say when it happened? Yes, at 3:56, 6 minutes ago. Okay, sound travels about a mile every 5 seconds. Figure about 208 miles to as the crow flies times 5 divided by 60 gives us a little more than 15 minutes before we get hit by the sound explosion. That's what I came up with too. This may be louder than the Cascadia subduction zone eruption. There is that possibility of Yellowstone is smaller than the Cascadia subduction zone. Still, have David get the word out. In fact, get everyone on the phone, radio, internet, whatever, that Yellowstone has erupted, and we may get another ear-busting noise in about 15 minutes. Walt said as he went back into Sarah's house. The ham radios are already alive with the news and warnings about a possible loud noise from the explosion. David, Sally, Nikki, and Brian are working on it. We got it on this end. Great. I got it. I got to let everyone in. I got to let great. I've got to let the county know. I'll talk to you in 12 minutes, Walt said, disconnected as he opened the door to the Ahern's basement. All right. Let's see, banners. I'll be right back, folks. All right. You want cereal? Open on the bottom left light switch. The left one closest to the window. Yeah. No. Okay, I'm back. Got a happy grandson with a bowl of frosted mini wheats. Uh, to the basement door. He took the stairs 3 at a time, and we hit the basement floor. He yelled, "Everybody up, we got trouble," and walked over to where the hidden door was and pounded his fist on it. "Mr. Ahern, Sarah, Yellowstone just erupted." Sarah pulled the door open. "What?" "Yellowstone just erupted. We got about 10 to 15 minutes until the sound of the eruption gets here. Make sure everybody has earplugs in." "Well, you know what to do. I got to get back to the office and change the emergency warning system. Warning. Change the emergency warning message." Okay, we'll get Walt was cut off. Walt cut off Sarah's response with a big kiss. He broke the kiss, and Hurley said he'd be back. Hurley said as he backed out the door, "I'll be back as soon as I can. Hurry," was all she could get out. Walt took the stairs again 3 at a time as he cleared the doorway on his 5th step. He closed and secured the basement and back doors. He hurried through the plastic decontamination to some intake and sprinted around to the driver's door, opened it, and hopped inside. He grabbed the handheld microphone and keyed it. "This is Sheriff Rogers to all deputies and anyone monitoring this frequency. The Yellowstone supervolcano has just erupted. I repeat, the Yellowstone supervolcano has just erupted. This is not a hoax. We have about 10 minutes before the noise of the eruption reaches us. You need to get your earplugs and earmuffs ready. All deputies respond. Gary copies, Jason copies, Chris copies, Nelson copies, Ricky copies, Parker copies. Silence. Silence. After several seconds, Walt continued. Gary, start calling the others. Chris, let the DHS personnel know what's happened. I'm on my way back to the office to change the emergency. What? Hang on. I think I made a mistake there. I got to check something here. Yeah, the emergency radio warning system. Yeah, the emergency radio warning system. Yeah, the ERWM and sound the county alert siren. Walt headed the Humvee back towards the sheriff's office and turned on the licensed siren. This was not good, Walt thought to himself as he drove. With Southern California, Mexico, New Madrid, and now Yellowstone sprouting volcanoes, and no telling where else they were appearing, the air is not going to be fit to breathe. This could be an extinction event. Hang on, I need to put some quotes in here. There we go. Ryan the Gamer is in the house. Woo-hoo! All right, got that corrected there. All right, so I just hope the winds out of the west continue for the next couple of days, he said aloud. It was those fast winds that had kept the ash falls so light in this part of Idaho. When the Cascadia subduction zone was spewing lots of ash, when the tides were low, the wind blew the ash over past western Idaho into the Yellowstone area. Now that the ash was being blown, back up in the air, it would carry it to the Midwest and most likely even to the eastern states. This was definitely worse than anything Dan had made notes on for any of his stories. His phone vibrated, telling him they had a text message. He smiled. At least the cell towers are still working, but for how much longer? Hang on here. We're going to do that and that. And that. He pulled out the phone. It was from Sarah. He tapped the screen and a message popped up. What about the horses? Walt laughed. That's another reason I love you, he said out loud. He pushed the speed dial for his dad. The phone rang once. Yes, Walt. What about the horses? A new way to protect your hearing. Your mom already thought about that. It is in the barn with your grandparents, Eric and Diane. They're taking care of that right now. They're packing the ears with wet hygiene pads and then wrapping them with towels and strips of sheets to hold it in place. Thanks, Dad. I'll tell Sarah. She was worried about him. You know you're not going to make it back here before the sound gets here. I know. I have all my hearing protection with me. I'll drive out there with it on. You might want to stay with the Aherns tonight. I'll see what happens. But right now, I've got to get inside and update the emergency radio warning system message. All right, bye, son. Walt stopped the Humvee in front of his office and climbed out. He'd only taken 3 steps towards the office when the pavement beneath his feet seemed to object to his walking on it. The first jolt to the west shoved and shoved the Humvee into him and knocked him sideways several feet. Then as Walt regained his balance, the pavement jumped up and tossed both him and the Humvee into the air a couple of feet. When he came down, Walt was so off balance that he tripped over his own feet and landed hard on his left shoulder. Even as pain shot through his side, Walt was trying to roll away from the Humvee, which was bouncing back and forth with the shockwaves. This wouldn't have been a problem except that it was bouncing towards Walt. After about 20 seconds of playing dodge with the Humvee, Walt was able to struggle to his feet. He did it like a drunken sailor in a storm, but he managed to get himself upright. Walt noticed the shockwaves were beginning to decrease in magnitude. He also noticed that several of the buildings had sustained considerable damage and that he could no longer hear the generator that was powering the sheriff's office building. He could hear a car alarm a couple streets over and shook his head with all the recent earthquake activity. With all the recent earthquake activity recently, someone still didn't realize that setting a car alarm was akin to saying, "Look at me, I'm stupid. I can't figure out the earthquake's just going to set off the alarm about every time." All that is accomplished by setting an alarm was to make your neighbors mad at you. Walt started to walk towards the sheriff's office when he saw the antenna for the emergency radio was laying down on the roof and part of it was hanging over the edge. Ugh. Walt didn't feel it was necessary to sound the warning siren since the last earthquake should have woken everybody up if they tuned their radios to the emergency warning system. The frequency would be silent. Hopefully, they realized that something bad was happening. He turned back to the Humvee, and the shaking started to increase again. "Oh, this isn't good," he said to no one. Usually by now the shaking would be diminishing, not increasing. But this was not a normal earthquake shockwave. Walt didn't know what it meant, but he didn't like it. This quake was producing a noise that was not unlike the rumble one would hear when standing between a team of engines of coupled freight trains as they started up. He staggered to the Humvee, put one arm out as he braced himself, as he timed the shaking so he could grab hold of the door handle and open the door. Once he got the door open, Walt carefully climbed on the running board and slid into the driver's seat, pulling the door closed behind him. This is Sheriff Rogers to all deputies and anyone listening on this frequency. The emergency radio antenna is down. The generator has stopped working. We have a few minutes before the noise of the Yellowstone radio reaches us. In these last few minutes, please warn your neighbors to protect their ears. Also, please stay out of the downtown area. This current earthquake has damaged many buildings, and it's not safe to be with them. Within an hour, the Cascadia subduction zone will experience an increase in lava flow that will also produce an increased ash production. How much ash and how soon it will get here will depend on the speed of the wind from the west. Once again, please pass this information on to your neighbors. Sheriff Rogers out. Walt started the Humvee and headed off to Sarah's house. This was not as easy as he thought it would be, with the Humvee bouncing around like bouncing around. Hang on, that doesn't sound right. This was not as easy as he thought it would be with a Humvee being bounced around. Because of the shockwave of the Yellowstone eruption. Then a terrifying thought hit him. What if this is not from the Yellowstone eruption? What it was from? What was it from? Walt drove faster. Jerry and Randy had finished their inspection of the tunnels of mine. Now they were sitting outside by the fire watch in front of the mines since the ash had stopped falling for a while. They were holding hands and talking about what the future held in store for them. What they would do after the asteroid had left the solar system, and whether things would return to normal. If so, how long would it take? Ooh, excuse me. They wondered what they would do the first few years while the world was recovering. What would they do for income? Where would they live? These were the things they were trying to figure out when they saw the light from the Yellowstone eruption. Randy, Jerry asked in a quiet but steady voice. That was a little odd compared to what it was a second ago. Yes, he replied, unsure if he had said something to offend her. What's that light? Come on. What's that light? She pointed in the eastern sky, where off in the distance there was a brightness beginning to grow. I don't know. Randy stood up and walked around the far side of the fire pit. Whew. To get a better view about the glare of the fire in his eyes. Jerry followed him and they stared at it. She slipped her hand into his and squeezed. I don't like the look of it. I think this is going to be bad. How bad? I'm beginning to wish we were back in the room on your sleeping bag and I had let you seduce me that type of bad. What do you think it is? I think Yellowstone just killed us. Jerry squeezed Randy's hand all the tighter as tears began to flow down her face. I don't want to die, Randy. If that is Yellowstone erupting, I'm not sure we can survive this. We are better off up here than we would be in town, aren't we? Jerry asked with broken breath on the verge of breaking down and bawling. Yes, we are better off up here, he said. The ash will collect more in the valleys, and what does collect up here will wash down there with the rains. At least that's what I read in one of the sheriff's books. We better tell everybody inside about this, Jerry said between gasps. Yes, you're right. They need to know. Hang on, we'll put a comma in there. And we're at 3 again. They turned and walked slowly back inside the mine, holding hands. And yes, that's one I got to remove there and one I got to remove there. The lights were flickering on and off as the power tried to reestablish its flow. Several of the overhead fixtures had come loose and were dangling just like in the disaster movies that Hollywood loved to crank out. Only this wasn't a movie. This was really happening, and it shouldn't be. This was the most robust facility in the United States military. This was Cheyenne Mountain. This was supposed to be able to take an atomic strike. Colonel Mitchell, General Snyder hollered. What the hell's going on? I don't know, sir. No one does. The colonel continued as he tried to get an outside line on the communication systems. It appears that all lines of communications out to the outside world are no longer functioning. Just then, the room began to shake and bounce again. The lights flickered furiously. and several more light fixtures began falling, and it went dark. Screams of panic and pain came from all around as personnel were struck by falling fixtures and other pieces of equipment. After several minutes, the shaking stopped and the battery-powered emergency light, plural, lights came on. General Snyder was a hardened combat veteran and seen gruesome sights during his tour of duty. But the sight that met his eyes when the lights came back on caused him to lose his breakfast. Colonel Mann was lying over the console with a light fixture embedded in him from his shoulder down through his pelvis. The fixture was smoking, as was the colonel, as arcing electricity shot from the colonel's body into anything metal around him. The worst part was he was trying to talk and his body twitched with each arc of electricity. A young airman came crawling his way through the wreckage came crawling his way through the wreckage. I don't need to have his name in there twice because it's Stu Snyder. We all know it's Stu Snyder. General SNYD. General Snyder, we made contact the outside via the old Mars radios. And the general's, hang on here. And the general asked as he wiped his lips clean. Ham radio operator saying that Mount Sorrow has erupted like a super volcano. But I don't know of any volcanoes in Colorado. I do, General Snyder said, turning pale. It's a volcano about 150 miles northwest of here. It hasn't been active in over 4,200 years. Did they say how bad it looks? One report said it looks like an old steam engine puffing out black and gray smoke out of its funnel, but that its funnel is 15 miles wide. Oh my Lord, we're dead. Sir, that much smoke means millions of tons of ash. Our ventilation system will be buried within the hour. And without power, we can't open the doors. We'll suffocate within a day or two at the most. What can we do, sir? The general, one of the toughest commanding officers around, looked at the young airman and said, make it quick. With that, he pulled out his service revolver, put it under his chin, and pulled the trigger. As Walt got closer to Sarah's house, he tried to call her again, but the cell phone kept dropping the call on the first ring. When he looked down at the cell phone, it showed there was no signal to link to. The cell towers were dead. Walt wasn't really at all surprised. Actually, when he thought about it, he was surprised they stayed up this long. If they worked like radio repeaters, as most people thought, then he might find one tower still able to broadcast a signal, but they don't. They needed to be connected to the landline switching station to reroute the signal to another tower or even to the same tower to transmit it out to the desired receiver, aka cell phone. Okay. Let me get some water here. That's it, Walt shouted as he reached over and turned the hand radio that was added to every patrol unit 6 months ago. He racked his his brain to remember what the frequency the ventures used. He just couldn't remember, so he figured he might as well try the ranch and see if David could give it to him. Reaching down, he turned the dial to the ranch frequency. He reaching down to turn the dial to the ranch frequency. He saw that it was on a familiar frequency other than the one he had the ranch set on. He wasn't sure what it was that came on with one of the ventures talking. Sarah, do you copy? This is William. The call was repeated 3 times without response. After the third call, Walt keyed his mic. William, this is Sheriff Rogers. Over. Sheriff, boy, are we glad to hear from you. How are things in town? The power's out. We got shaken real bad, but most of the buildings are still standing. Your signal's really weak. Try boosting the power. Over. I'm on a handheld. We're working on getting the generator running again. The big generator bounced around and landed on the feed line, shorted it out, and the back generator tipped over and broke the oil line to the cooler. We don't dare run it until we replace it. Over. Just plug the line and top off the oil. It'll be fine for a couple days before you have to check the oil. The extra oil cooler was for long-term use. So just as long as you shut it down every 2 or 3 days and check the oil level, it'll be fine. Over. Copy that. My dad heard you. He is going off to do that now. There was a long pause without the standard over to indicate he was done talking. Then he continued. Sheriff, Randy and Jerry saw Yellowstone erupt. Are we going to die? Over. Not if you keep your heads about you and play it smart. We may get a boatload of ash from it, but the winds are strong from the west and are picking up speed. That they should blow most of it eastward. A bigger concern is the Pacific Crest volcanoes. If they blow, we'll get a lot of ash. Over. Thanks for the update, Sheriff. Is there anything else we should be doing? Over. Yes, get ready for a real loud noise from Yellowstone eruption. It should be here any minute. Over. I understand. I'm going to tell everybody to get ready for it. Over. Good. I'll have Dave out the ranch get in contact with you after the noise passes. Over. Understood. William, over and out. Hey, William, I'm headed into Sarah's now, so I will update her on your status. Rogers out. Copy. Out. Walt was about a half a block from Sarah's house right now, and he could see that the light from Yellowstone was not dimming at all, nor was it getting any brighter. Ooh. He did not know if that was a good thing or not, but for now, he just wanted to be out of the night with Sarah. He tried to call Sarah one more time on the radio, but got no response. When he pulled when he pulled up to the Ahern's house, Walt saw all the lights were out. He'd seen light of some sort at most of the houses he'd driven by. Most of those were camp lantern, generator, or candle. He figured they had put up blackout curtains or they were in the basement, so he just backed the Hummer in the driveway like he'd always done for the past couple weeks, just in case he needed to leave in a hurry. Besides his normal routine of putting a 5-gallon bucket over the air intake snorkel, this time Walt grabbed the decibel meter from between the seats and stuck it in his messenger bag, and then grabbed the sleeping bag and pad he kept in the storage compartment for emergencies. He took them to the house with him. Hoped that Sarah's parent wouldn't think he was being too presumptuous on bringing them inside with him. After brushing the ash off himself with the broomsticks the Ahrens had in their decontamination hallway, they made out of their home's portico. Walt knocked several times, then used the key Sarah had given him to unlock the back door and enter the home. Walt called out to keep from getting shot, but no one responded. Walt relocked the back door and went to the door that led to the basement. Walt knocked loudly 3 times and called out, "It's Walt, please don't shoot me." Then unlocked the door, opened it, and went down the stairs. He made it about halfway down the stairs when Sarah and Earl came out of the secret door to the rest of the basement. "I take it everyone's awake," Walt said as he continued down the stairs. "Yeah, that last shaker woke everybody up and scared us pretty good." With more calm than Walt would imagine anyone having after the earthquake. "Do you have any idea what it was?" Sarah said as her voice was quivering like she was trying to do an impression of the Munchkins from The Wizard of Oz. Walt took a breath. Yellowstone erupted. "Oh, crap," Earl said, followed quickly by, "Excuse my French." Sarah jumped against Walt, wrapped her arms around his waist, and buried her head in his chest. "Don't leave me." "I can't promise that, but I will stay for several hours if it's all right with your dad. I'll even try to catch some winks," Walt replied as he cradled Sarah in his arms. Of course you can stay." Then added in his breath, We should be staying out at out with you out at the ranch." He pulled the secret door open a little wider for Sarah and Walt to go through and muttered, He muttered, "Not cowering in a hidey hole in a basement like a frightened mouse." "What was that, Dad?" Sarah asked, only heard him mumble something but couldn't make out. "Oh, nothing. I was just mumbling how much smarter you are than your old man." Sarah knew something was wrong and bothered Father. "Whatever it was you said, I want you to know that I love you too. I know you're trying to do your best for us. But what if it's good enough? What if I do the absolutely wrong thing?" Earl said louder than he meant to. Oh. Sarah turned to her father as he closed the door. "Like what exactly are you thinking you did wrong?" "Staying here and not taking Walt up on his offer to move everyone out to the ranch," he berated himself. "I have my family hiding in hidey hole rooms hidden in the basement, for crying out loud." "So do I," Walt chuckled. "What?" Earl and Sarah both said at the same time. "My Uncle Dan was big into disaster preparedness. I'm not sure when he did it, but he built an addition to the house basement. It's under the back patio. At the back patio outdoor kitchen. To get to it, you have to open a hidden door, and once inside, on the back wall against the hill. He installed the old safe from the bank when they remodeled it 20-some years ago. Anyway, behind that safe door is a tunnel that goes several hundred feet into the mountain to a huge cave that he reinforced with concrete walls and pillar. The tunnel is made out of 10-foot diameter, 3/8 thick steel water pipe that is concrete lined, and the void between the pipe and the wall of the bore tunnel that was dug to put the pipe in is pumped full of foam concrete as well. Right now, to be safe, I had my family move into that tunnel like rats in a sewer pipe in the basement. Walt shrugged his shoulders. You do what you do to keep your family safe. "Oh, stretch, sorry. Oh. Yeah, but your hidey hole is a lot safer than mine." Earl said, SAID. True, but yours has heat, water, and a toilet. The tunnel doesn't, Walt said with a smile and jerked his thumb to the half bath in the front part of the basement. But being concrete, yours is fireproof, not likely to shake apart on top of you with a 7.5 earthquake. Well, you do have that one. I take it you want to come out as soon as you can, if we're able to, Earl sighed. I know we can get out of here, but we would like to, but we would be leaving a lot behind. I don't want to come with nothing and be a burden. Things can be replaced, family can't. Could your dad and brother bring the SAR and Ranger 2 here? Then we could load what we could into it. Danny's truck and our vehicles into it. Danny's truck and our vehicles, and leave the rest hidden down here, Sarah asked hopefully. If the asphalt isn't too heavy, they should be able to bring it. Bring it, the Ranger 2 and the Deuce and a Half with the horse trailer. Then we should be able to get everything. Earl held up both hands with fingers crossed. Here's to light asphalt today. What we need to be ready for is the sound from Yellowstone eruption, which should be here in a minute. So everybody should have one earplug in, if not both. And have your hearing protection ready. This may be louder than when the Cascadia subduction zone ruptured. Okay. I'll get everyone set up with what they need, Earl said. All right. Let's see. We're at 2:47. Let me check to see what this one here starts at. This one starts at 2:50. Only 4 pages to go. Okay. Sarah folded up and moved her reclining camp chair, then grabbed Walt's camping pad and untied it and unrolled it. Once she had it rolled out and staying put, she grabbed a sleeping bag, pulled it out of the stuff bag and laid it out and smoothed out the wrinkles. There you go, babe. All the comforts at home. All you need is a wife, she said. Sarah said, and as soon as she said it, her own sadness washed over her face. Walt reached down and lifted her up to her feet. I have the best life there ever was or will be. I just haven't cut paper or taken her to bed yet. Then he pulled her in tight and kissed her deeply. Everyone else in the basement made an effort to be looking elsewhere. All right, this is going to be fun here. Okay, got a lot of dot spaces to fix up to the new format. Just about there, folks. There we go. Got that taken care of. Let me hit save for this. When he broke the kiss, Sarah would not let Walt loose at all and started giving him little peck kisses between each word. I love you, Walt Rogers. Love you, love you, love you. Then she slowly let him slip from her embrace. I should have married you the day after the election, Walt said regretfully. Hell, I should have married you that day we went for for the ride after you washed Ajax. Let me fix this one here. Get that there looking better. There we go. Speaking of which, Danny spoke up from where she was sitting on Mick's lap with her arms wrapped around his neck. What will you and I be when you two get married? We're not exactly in-laws. Outlaws, Walt said a half second before he realized Danny had set him up for one of her puns. She flashed a big smile. I have a sheriff for an outlaw. Then rested her head back against Mick's head. Ah, cute, Danny, Walt said as he set his jacket and duty belt and decimal meter and hat in a pile next to the sleeping bag and pad. Then he checked his watch. Everybody better get their hearing protection on. The sound wave from Yellowstone should be here any moment. Everyone hurried to put their earplugs in and shooting muffs on. Seeing that everyone had put their hearing protection on, Walt sat down and stretched out on the bag. And was stretching out on the bag when the noise from the Yellowstone eruption hit the Ahern's house. Sorry. Even in the basement with the sound dampening insulation and hearing protection, the noise was exceedingly loud. Walt picked up the decimeter and turned it on and was surprised to see the reading of 126 decibels. That meant the level outside had to be well in the one. Then he noticed the decibel reading was dropping. It was at 125, no, 121, 118, 112. It was still dropping. Within 2 minutes, it was reading 19 decibels, which was normal for this environment. Walt reached up and slid the muff off his head. No sounds. Then he removed one earplug. He could hear one of the earplugs. He could hear the clothing of others when they moved around. He sat up and touched Sarah's hand to get her attention. Sarah turned and saw Walt had taken off his hearing protection, slowly reached up and took off earmuffs. Not hearing anything, she pulled out an earplug. It's over? It seems so, Walt said with a perplexed look on his face. Sarah waved at everyone and pointed to her ears as she took the other earplug out. Carol looked at Walt and asked, "Was that it?" "I think so." "Why? How?" Sarah asked him. "The last time it lasted for almost an hour. What's going on?" "I'm not sure. It does seem strange." "I know what happened," Mick said. "Really?" Sarah snapped at him, then realized he was being serious, not trying to be funny. "Sorry, what happened?" "It's easy to explain," Mick said with a smile. This was the first time that he could supply information that was going on. When the Cascadia subduction zone ruptured, it was along a fault line like a crack in a boiler. It hissed out loudly for a long time as the pressure bled off. But with Yellowstone erupted, it was like the cork of a champagne bottle. Boom! And it's all over, except for the liquid flowing out. Walt chuckled. "Nick, you're a genius. That makes perfect sense." "But what of all the ash fallout from Yellowstone? Do we have to worry about it?" Carol asked. Walt thought for a few moments to formulate a response to Carol before answering. "I don't know for sure. I would imagine so in the long run. Right now we have some pretty good and constant winds blowing from the west. So far the winds have been blowing the heavier ash falls from the Cascadia subduction zone over us to the east. They should keep the ash from Yellowstone from getting to us. However, the rest of the country," hang on, let me fix the one here. They're going to get hit hard with ash. Food production will be non-existent for years in the Midwest. What about what we heard about? What about what we have heard about California? If that's true, then that would really mean we're going to be short on food for the whole nation, Danny said. That means that most of the people are going to die. And those people that survive in the cities are going to be looking for a new food source. And with the Midwest and California out of the picture, then the food production is down to the Boise area. Started to postulate. We'll be running out of. We'll be down to the Boise area. We'll be running out of food by the end of the first year, Mick continued. Then the survivors will be going looking for food. Our farms and ranches just made it to the top of where the food is list, Walt finished everybody's conjecture. Maybe they'll go south instead of north, Sarah's grandmother said. We can only hope, Earl added. But they're not the only ones to have to worry about, are they? Danny asked. No, we'll see refugees from eastern Idaho, even from Washington. And they could be either those fleeing the ash or the gangs. Make no mistake about it. The gangs will raise their ugly heads and they will be bad. Of course, we may have to worry about the gangs that have been chased out by the towns that are well armed and organized. If it's the latter, then they won't be that tough. They'll have been run off already and shouldn't have that much in the way of guns and ammo and other supply. True, but they'll be all the more desperate, Walt sighed. And then we have time to get ready for them, Sarah said positively. After all, the highway department won't be clearing the highway, and we can take the equipment here and use it to plow snow roadblocks. That'll stop any vehicle and slow those walking in. You're right about some of that, but we need to take a closer look at what other counties are doing and plan accordingly. But that won't happen for a while. Let's try to get some more sleep and worry about tomorrow. Amen. Amen to that, Walt said softly. And we're at chapter 10, and let me hit the save button. So tomorrow at 9 o'clock, we will start with chapter 10, and then on Thursday we'll finish off the book with chapter 11 and the preview of book 2. So with that, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the story a bit, and if you noticed anything, if you're reviewing this and you notice it's a mistake that I didn't correct, go ahead and make a comment in the comment section, or just email me. The email's in the bottom of the description, and I'll get it fixed. All right, everyone. Thank you for coming in and watching this. Remember, stay happy no matter what life throws at you. Stay safe. Don't go out and do anything foolish. Keep adding to your preps: water, food, medicine, clothing. Work on planning your garden. Seed catalogs are already out, so you may want to pick them up and start checking to see what you want to grow this year. All right, take care. Come on, where is it going here? There it is. In stream and in stream.